This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about World Series earthquakes, the non-existent basement of the Alamo, and pooping Novocaine. All that and more as we watch Season 5, Episode 4 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. I'm Sophia. I'm one of your hosts, and joining me, as always, is your other host and my other brother. My only brother. What's up, Imran?
What's up, sister? Listen, we got to hurry up and get through this podcast. I got a dentist appointment later to get to.
Oh, no. I hate the dentist.
Ask me what time it's at.
Would it be 2:30?
2:30, of course. 2:30. Lame dad joke. Listen, there's nothing like a good dentist joke to start the episode, and that was nothing like a good dentist joke.
But I'm ching.
Yeah, okay. I'll buzz myself. I'll see myself out. Thank you. That's my time.
Very appropriate. Ladies and gentlemen, my brother, the comedian. Very appropriate opening joke for Season 5, Episode 4 of Perfect Strangers, entitled Tooth or Consequences.
Wait a minute. That's not how the phrase goes. Tooth or consequences.
No, of course.
That's a pun.
The phrase is truth or consequences that we're playing off of. So we have the pun tooth or consequences. I feel like we should just do dental puns this
the whole time.
Podcast.
Yes, it might end up happening. Strap in, listener.
Truth or Consequences was a very popular game show that actually began on the radio way back in the 1940s and then moved to television from the 50s to the 70s and then a little bit in the 80s as well. And it was so popular, it was in the sort of lexicon, Truth or Consequences. It's also a game. Or no, that's Truth or Dare. Kind of the same thing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
but the game show was Truth or Consequences.
The game show was well known. I like this little story. Apparently, in 1950, the host, Ralph Edwards, put out that he would broadcast the show from any town that would rename themselves Truth or Consequences.
What?
And a town in New Mexico took him up. And apparently, I think it still is called Truth or Consequences New Mexico or TNC New Mexico. Somebody looked that up.
My goodness.
Is that a thing? That's crazy. New Mexico, I like your style.
It actually is.
It's still
a
Truth or
town,
Consequences because of this game. Wow.
in New Mexico. Amazing. All right. So that's where we get our title from. If you were to look at the TV guide description ahead of this episode, you would have read the following. Balky's first trip to the dentist isn't the terrifying experience it's cracked up to be, while an unsuspecting Larry feels the pain.
Oh, I like this little tease. I like how they put that.
What's going to happen at the dentist?
We are joined by our usual cast of hilarious people. Bronson Pinchot as Balky, Mark Lindbaker as Larry, Sam Anderson as Mr. Gorpley makes an appearance, and we got a couple of guest dental professionals.
Dental people.
We will get to once we get there. This episode's original air date, October 13th, 1989. Very close to your birthday there.
Oh, yeah. 3 days ahead of my 10th
Oh, my God. Yeah.
birthday.
Would it have been your 10th birthday? Yeah.
10th
You would have
birthday.
10. That's crazy.
3 days ahead of my 10th birthday.
Of course. And we're also full into TGIF. In fact, when this episode first aired, this was the first time they played interstitials featuring Mark Lindbaker and Bronson as Balky and Larry
hosting the whole
kind of a
TGIF
night between the
evening.
I remember those.
Yeah.
And they were great.
That's really fun. That's really what we talked about this before. Those little hosting bits tied the whole TGIF 2-hour segment together. Of course, you can watch all of Perfect Strangers absolutely free on Amazon Freevee. Thank you, Amazon, for putting this beautiful show up. There's just one little commercial break in the middle of each episode, but otherwise completely free. Yay.
Free.
Free. We love free stuff. Act 1. Here we go. Truth or Consequences. We start this show in the apartment, and we understand that it's morning because Balky is sitting at the kitchen counter. It seems like he's eating breakfast and like paging through a magazine.
And he's eating rice cakes, right? The things that taste like flavored air.
Yeah.
And really don't fill you up at all. I don't know who thought this was a good idea.
I don't know. Coming from Mypos, why he would come to America and enjoy rice.
It's cardboard, Balky. What are you doing? But he's having a tough time eating these rice cakes.
Yeah, so we get we get straight to the problem. We see him take a bite and then wince his whole face winces and contorts, and he screams a little in pain, and then he just goes back to normal, flips the page of the magazine, keeps reading, everything's fine. So we see that once, and then we have Larry entering from his bedroom into the living room, and they're going to work, and he says, "Come on, let's go, we're going to be late." And Balky's like, "All right, let me just finish my breakfast." And then he takes another bite. Again, this time he drops the rice cake. He grabs his face, one side of his face, and he lets out a big scream. And his face is just contorted. You know how it is. Think of tooth pain.
Nervy tooth pain.
Tooth pain is
quite possibly the worst feeling.
Absolute worst. Listen, I've been through a lot of different kinds of pain in my life, and I consider myself having a high tolerance for pain, but we'll get to this later. The tooth and the dentist stuff is the absolute worst.
Quite possibly, yes.
Yes.
I think we can all agree.
All right, so then he does this whole thing. He grabs his face. This is a little bit longer of an anguish. He screams, but then again, he pops out of it, goes back to normal, flips the page of his magazine, keeps reading. And Larry says, "Is something wrong?" And Balky's like, "No, why?" As if nothing. And he's like, "You screamed." And Balky's like, "Oh, that." And he tells him, actually, he does have a little pain in his tooth, but it's nothing.
It's nothing causing.
And Larry's like, "Well, what does it feel like?" And Balky says, "It feels like someone is hammering a huge nail up inside my head and twisting it and turning it." And he gets really into this description, and Larry starts wincing just from the description. He's like, "I got
every
it."
little word he's jumping, and he's like, "Okay, I get it, Balky. It sounds like you've got a cavity." And Balky doesn't know what he's talking about, so he explains cavity is a hole in your mouth. And he tells him when they get to the office, he's going to make him an appointment with his dentist. Seems like a good thing to do.
Balky must have, at this point in America, heard a thing or two about the dentist, because he immediately is like, "Nope, nope, nope, nope.
Nobody likes the dentist.
Not going to the dentist."
Listen, I don't think it's an American thing. I just think nobody likes going to the dentist.
Yeah, I feel bad for dentists.
I know. They're
like rats. Nobody likes them.
Just pariahs of society.
So Balky's like, no, I'll go on a liquid diet. I'll have my jaw hot wired.
Okay.
But no dentist, no way, no how.
He meant jaw just wired
shut, not hot wired.
Like a car.
Yeah.
You start it up, which is kind of funny.
So Larry immediately seems to understand what's happening and goes into this treating Balky like a child to trick him to go to the dentist. He says, "Oh, you would love it. They let you sit in a chair that goes up and down, and suddenly it's working." Balky's interested. He's like, "Really?" They spray water in your mouth, and they give you balloons when you leave. And he's like, "Oh, it's like a visit to the amusement park." And then he goes, "It's too bad you don't want to go." And of course, this works. Balky says, "I want to go to the dentist."
It's just some great psychological.
He kind of Bugs Bunny'd him, right? Yeah.
Rabbit season, duck season.
Yeah.
And then I love Larry. He goes, "Well, okay, I'll make an appointment for you." It's just came
as
up
if
with the
he's
idea.
doing him a big favor.
He's like, "Oh, thank you," and they leave. And we cut to later that day. We're at work in the Chicago Chronicle. And it's so funny because Balky has his jacket on. He's sitting on filing cabinets, and he's swinging his legs and crossing them like a little kid.
Yeah.
He is super giddy about something.
Yes.
As Gorpley comes out and asks him, "Have you done your work? You done the deliveries?" He's like, "Yes, Mr. Gorpley, I did everything." He goes, "I am so excited." He goes, "I want to be all ready when Cousin Larry comes out and says, 'It's time to go to the dentist.'" And he throws his arms around Gorpley and hugs him.
And Gorpley is incredulous. He's like, "What? You're in a hurry to go to the dentist?" And Balky explains that Cousin Larry told him it's more fun than an amusement park. And Gorpley,
Gorpley has to put a
voice of reason.
Acid rain on his parade.
Yeah, Gorpley with the acid rain on Balky's parade. He says, "Actually, it's more like the House of Horrors."
Oh,
and then
boy.
he does this evil laugh, Gorpley laugh. And he says, especially when you see the drill.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
And, of course, Larry didn't mention anything about the drill to Balky, so Gorpley continues. The drill is the greatest instrument of torture since alimony.
Oh, he has a big smile on his face, too. He's happy about the drill.
He is enjoying this. And he explains that the dentist uses the drill to drill holes in your teeth.
Oh.
And Balky's like, I already have a hole in my tooth. I ain't I the lucky one.
Ain't I the lucky one.
And he even like opens his mouth to show him. He's like, see? And Gorpley's like, lovely. Well, just wait until the dentist uses the drill to make the hole bigger and deeper and wider. And as he's doing this, Balky is like gasping in horror, clutching the side of his mouth. He even like falls over to the side
into a ball
and
now.
curled into the fetal position on the desk. And Gorpley continues. He's like bigger and deeper and wider. And he sees Balky and then he goes, God, I wish I hadn't dropped out of dental school.
Of course.
Of dental college, which is such a great button to this joke here. And he goes, have fun. I'm going to lunch. I'll bring you back a jawbreaker. Oh God.
I love the fact that Gorpley was in dental college because he is a man who enjoys torturing people. And that is the perfect profession. It reminds me of Little Shop of Horrors. The whole song about you'll be a dentist. Yeah. You have a talent for causing things pain.
Yeah.
Son, be a I mean, amazing. Steve Martin in the movie killed that.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a lot of things that remind me of Little Shop of Horrors in this episode.
Yes, or every time you go to the dentist.
Gorpley would be that guy, that dentist who's like open wide and just getting off on the fact that he's drilling holes on you.
So Gorpley's just like laughing as he leaves the scene. He's just enjoying it. Larry comes in to find Balky curled up in the fetal position, grasping his face on top of the desk. And he just like looks at him and he's like, is your tooth bothering you? And Balky sits up, looks at him, and he screams, you didn't tell me about the drill.
The drill.
He tells Larry that Mr. Gorpley told him.
Who told you about the drill?
Yeah, Mr. Gorpley told him that the dentist is going to take a drill and make the hole in my tooth bigger and wider and deeper, and that it's going to hurt more than alimony.
Which is what he said.
And we all remember what happened at the alimony.
That's great. He's confusing alimony with the Alamo.
Okay.
Remember
so the phrase
Alamo.
Is what? Remember the Alamo. And tell us about the phrase.
Well, this was a battle cry in the Texan struggle for independence from Mexico way back when, later used by Americans in the Mexican War. And it basically recalls the desperate fight of Texan defenders at the Alamo, which was a fort where everybody had a last stand and they all kind of died trying to keep the Alamo. And you have to remember the Alamo.
Right.
Always
the other
the
Alamo joke in popular culture being, of course, the bicycle from Pee Wee Herman. I was just going to say,
it's also where Pee Wee Herman's bicycle was.
In the basement of the Alamo.
That was the whole Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
So this is a deep cut. Some younger listeners might not understand this at all, but there was a very popular movie called Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure, based on the television show Pee Wee's Playhouse. And in the movie, there's a whole storyline about this bicycle that ends up in the basement of the Alamo, and he has to go find it. And for years after that movie, people would go to the Alamo, which is like a tourist site, a place to visit, and like ask about the basement. And of course, there's no basement in the Alamo. And that's the joke.
Did they film at the Alamo? Large Marge gave him a ride.
It's a fort.
If you've never seen that movie, it's great. One of Tim Burton's greatest movies.
So, two things. Remember the Alamo and remember that there is no basement in the Alamo.
His bicycle is not there. So then Larry returns back to treating Balky like a child. And he's like, oh, did Mr. Gorpley scare you? Did he scare you? Are you scared? Are you scared of the dentist? And Balky's like, oh, Carson, of course I'm not scared of the dentist. However, he says, I've decided that I don't need to go to the dentist. I can learn to live with the pain. And Larry's like, you can live with the pain. Balky goes, yes. And Larry just jabs a finger in his tooth, and Balky screams out really loud. And Larry's like, you can't live with the pain, Balky. He's like, you can't live with the pain. And he tells him, Balky, you got to get your tooth taken care of now. If you don't, it will only hurt worse and be harder to fix. this is true and this is important advice.
And Balky says he understands, and he goes, there's just one little problem. And he goes, I'm afraid.
And he just, his head falls forward and he's crying. I'm afraid.
And Larry convinces him that he wouldn't do anything that was bad for him, right? Like, he's there to help him. And he says, Balky, remember the time you were afraid to have your picture taken because you thought the camera was going to steal part of your soul? You remember what I said? And Balky says, yeah, you said, Balky, don't be stupid.
That reminds me of The Simpsons. Remember when somebody takes a picture of Grandpa and then Grandpa goes, come back here with my soul. Runs after him.
And then Larry says, Balky, remember the time you were afraid to get into the elevator because you thought it would take you to the center of the earth? And Balky says, and you said, Balky, don't be stupid. And Larry says, and now you ride the elevator all the time. And that's what's happening now. He's like, I'm riding the elevator? And Larry says, no, you're being stupid, which is so mean.
Well, he called him stupid three times.
And then Balky just says, thank you, cousin.
Oh, my God. This gets away with calling Balky stupid. Don't be stupid. Great argument.
He's treating him like a child, calling him stupid. What else is going to happen this episode?
Well, now it's time to get to the dentist's office as we get an establishing shot of a building downtown. And you know it's in Chicago, because there's clearly a street sign that says Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah.
And this building does look familiar. It might actually be still around.
Maybe.
But they actually bothered to shoot something in Chicago as an establishing shot of the dentist's office. And it zooms into the window. And we're on in the dentist's office.
So, yeah, next scene, we're inside a, typical looking dentist chair, dentist office. There's a woman, a dental assistant, putting that little bib thing around.
Balky's sitting in a chair and Larry's standing there next to him for moral support.
Yeah, and he gets a bib put on and the assistant makes the chair go up.
Which delights Balky to no end.
Yeah, he's
a little kid right here. He's like, oh.
He goes, I like that. Do it again. And Larry's like, one ride per visit, Balky. And he explains to the assistant that this is Balky's first time at the dentist. And then we go through this little bit about an x-ray that never actually happened. So she takes, those like...
X-ray film. The little
film that you have to bite on.
That
it's
are
really
always uncomfortable and you can't keep it in the same place.
She puts it in his mouth, tells him to bite down. He bites on her fingers. He's like, And she gets her fingers out.
Those bit her fingers off.
She tells him that it's very important that he keeps his mouth closed. And she says, I'm just going to take some x-rays of your tooth. And she turns around to get the machine.
You notice she doesn't put the lead shield on him.
No
and also doesn't tell Larry to leave the room. If you were going to take x-rays now, I don't know. I guess they did. I mean,
television x-rays are harmless.
They're harmless. But it was also, I don't know if people fully knew back then about x-rays in the dentist. Because I remember I've seen stories in the early 60s. They used to use an x-ray machine to measure your foot in shoe stores. And people would just willingly get...
What?
Yes.
Why? You can see the size of your foot on the outside.
There was something with x-rays in shoe stores, and they were like, oh, this is fine. It's safe. Don't just put your foot here.
All those people have cancer now.
Well, and I don't know when they started using the lead shields. And even that, every time they do it, I'm like, this clearly it's not enough.
Right.
What about the rest of me?
Right.
I'm getting straight x-rays right through my head. Okay, whatever. It's harmless. We've all had it.
Well, despite the lack of the metal thing, Balky is still pretty concerned.
Yeah.
And a little bit frightened. But the woman has told him that he has to keep his mouth shut, right?
Very important.
So describe what happens next.
So Balky turns to Larry and with his mouth shut goes, and proceeds to do all these lines with his lips closed. And Larry goes, what? And then the assistant goes, he says, x-rays? We didn't talk about x-rays. And they both look at her and she's like, well, in this business, you get used to people talking with stuff in their mouth. So this lady can understand everything he says.
And Bronson did a really impressive job.
Yes.
Saying all these words, because you can kind of hear him saying it, but talking with his mouth shut.
He does say the words as Larry explains. Not really helpful.
Yeah.
Larry goes, nothing to worry about. X-rays is just an invisible beam that goes through your face, takes a picture of your tooth, and goes right out the other side. It's completely safe.
Why would you explain an x-ray that way? I don't get it. Okay.
And then Balky looks at him and mumbles something else. He's like, And Larry goes, what? And the assistant goes, he said, what if the x-rays get stuck in my head and make a hole in my brain? And Larry's just like, trust me, as he tries to reassure him.
And then Balky turns to the assistant and has like this whole long comment. He's just talking and he's making eye gestures and his face is animated, like, but with his mouth shut. He's like,
When she goes, oh, yeah, well, you got a good point there.
And Larry's just like watching. He's like, what are they even talking about?
And then she doesn't take the x-ray. She's like, well, I'll just take this and we'll just take the x-rays after the doctor sees you. She takes it and walks out.
Oh, no
x-rays. And what were they saying? I expected Larry to be like, what did you just say? He never asked him. And I was like, what was Balky's good point?
Yeah, we never find out what the good point was, but he convinced her not to do the
I think if you listen to it enough, you might be able to figure out what the words are.
Yeah.
Anyways, this dental assistant, her name is Harriet Hall, and she was a veteran of film and television and appeared on this soap called Another World Somerset.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it, but did a lot of TV and film.
Good. Yeah. Okay, so she leaves without having done the x-rays, which, I don't know, is she going to lose her job?
Yeah, is that part of the plan? And instead of Larry asking Balky what he said, he goes, Balky, you're really being a big baby about all this.
Oh,
what
he's so mean to
I know he was
Balky.
He was being so condescending and nice up until now.
And Balky apologizes, and then there's there's that tray with all the dental tools.
Yeah, so
in
there's
the little holders.
What they have is they got the sink and the water thing that you spit in, and then the arm with the tray.
And all these little
with all the tools hanging out. There's no light above them.
No.
Usually there's also a light, not in this one. So he's noticed something on the tool tray.
Balky points to the drill on the tool tray. He says, cousin, what is this?
What?
And Larry tries to distract him by picking up a different thing from the tray. He's like, oh, look, here's the air blower. And he blows air, little spurts of air on Balky's face. And Balky giggles like a child. He's like,
no,
he goes, no, not that. What is this? Again, pointing at the drill. And Larry says, oh, look, here's the water sprayer. And he picks up the water sprayer and he sprays Balky with water. First in a spray, then a stream, like, a couple times. It's pretty annoying. I'd be annoyed by this point, but Balky's like, no, cousin, what is this? And then Larry again goes, oh, look, the saliva sucker. And he like puts it in his mouth and like sucks his cheeks or whatever.
Dude, the saliva sucker, you know when you put it in and you close your lips around it and you think you're going to die?
So I thought this was a missed opportunity in this scene because Balky could have closed. I was expecting him fully to close his lips around it and then like have his cheeks sucked in.
Yes, freak out like you think you're going to get
like
sucked into this machine. That would have been great.
They didn't do that. It was an easy missed opportunity. Anyway, and then he says, no, I'm desperate to know.
I'm just desperate to know.
And he picks up the drill in his hand. He goes, what is this? And Larry goes, oh, that. And then the drill turns on.
Yes, it just
starts buzzing like
I don't think Balky pressed the button.
No, his hand didn't move at all. It just turns on by itself. Ghost drill.
Ghost drill goes off.
And it goes on for a moment. The audience is laughing. Then it goes off by itself. And Balky says, would it be the drill? And then it goes off. And Larry's like, yeah, but it won't be painful. It won't hurt a bit after you're shot.
Oh, no.
Then Balky panics. He goes, I'm going to be shot. And Larry says, no, nothing like that. The doctor is just going to stick a needle in your cheek.
None of this is helping Larry Appleton.
Balky's like, I'm out of here. He tries to get out of the chair. Larry holds him back down into the chair. And that's when the doctor enters. His name is Dr. Shukin.
Oh, Shukin. Hey,
Dr. Shukin.
Dr. Shukin.
And he says, I hear we have a nervous patient. Larry introduces Balky to Dr. Shukin. And Dr. Shukin kind of like leans in to start working. And Balky says, don't you touch me. I happen to be trained in the marital arts.
And he starts doing kung fu like karate.
He starts doing karate chops.
Of course, he meant martial arts.
Martial arts.
Not mixed, just
a very
regular.
Easy typo.
Sure,
marital arts.
It's super funny, though. Because what are martial arts? That's like a couples counseling. It's marital arts.
Marital arts are like, what's your love language?
Yeah. And then, so Larry's like, all right, stop it, Balky. And Shukin's like, let's take a look. Now, open wide, and Balky is not opening his mouth at all. His lips are sealed, and he's like a little wider. And Balky is not cooperating.
Yeah.
And Larry's like, okay, you know what? This is what I'll do. Why don't I let the doctor look at my mouth first, and then that way you'll see nothing bad is going to happen.
Again, treating him like you would do
kid.
to a child.
But
yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
It's going to end up badly. And then Balky actually just goes with his lips closed and gets out the chair. And Larry takes his place, and Shukin goes back in and goes, okay, open wide. And he's like, tell me if this hurts. And he has the little, the proby thing.
The poker.
It's just a metal stick. These are all torture devices. They still have those. They're literally all. It's just a metal pointy stick that they jab into your gums and your nervy teeth. Really? There's no better way to do this? It's 2022.
So he says, tell me if this hurts. And he pokes one of Larry's teeth with the pokey thing. And Larry just goes, no.
And he turns and looks at Balky.
Smugly, of course.
Looks back.
And then he opens again, and Dr. Shukin says, how about this? And he touches another tooth, and Larry says, no. And he turns again smugly, and then he says to Balky, I told you it wouldn't hurt.
See, Balky?
And then, of course, here comes the rule of three. He opens again, and Dr. Shukin says this, and he puts it into another tooth, and Larry screams. He's like, and he looks at him in this really shocked face. He goes, what are you doing?
So funny. He's so mad at him.
He's so
what
mad.
Are you doing? He's just angry. The doctor tells him he's lost a filling.
I love
so
this.
funny.
What are you doing? I almost wonder if it was improvised because it's so different than anything we just say. How he says, "What are you doing?"
He's about to punch him in the face. It's so good. Larry's lost the filling, and he goes, "Okay, it's fine. I'll make an appointment for next month." And the doctor goes, "No, you need to do this now because it's going to get worse."
And so Balky pushes Larry's head back against the chair, just as Larry had done to Balky a few moments before.
And now Larry has suddenly become the patient.
The patient.
What a flip. Dun, dun, dun. Great rule of threes.
But my question is what about Balky's tooth? Balky's tooth still hurts. What are they going to do? Anyway, I guess they're both getting work done.
Well, he'll just have to go after Balky now. Yeah. That takes us to the end of the first act. Listener, you can join this conversation. You can meet other Perfect Strangers fans, meet other listeners of the podcast if you join our fun Facebook group. There's a link in the description where I post threads to episodes ahead of time, so you can watch them on Amazon Freebie. Leave your comments, questions, observations, memories of the show, what you were doing when you watched this.
Your favorite experiences at the dentist.
You can leave us your dental horror story. We all have one.
Yes, we're going to share ours a little bit later.
But it's a fun place to hang out and geek out about Perfect Strangers.
Yeah, we love our little community of cousins. Join us. So Act 2, we're right where we left off. Larry's in the dentist chair, and Dr. Shukin is coming at him, and he says, now I'm just going to numb your tooth so I can work on it. And he pulls out that big scary needle that we all hate that goes in your mouth.
The worst part.
And Larry is not having this. He actually grabs Dr. Shukin's wrist. He's like, no needles, no needles. And the dentist is like, it's just Novocaine. And Larry's like, I don't want any. I don't like being numb. And Belky says, oh, cousin, you're not dumb.
And then Larry they both look at him.
Yeah, they both look at him like, what? This is no time.
And then the doctor goes, well, I guess I'm just going to have to give you gas. And Belkin goes, well, we did fill up the tank this morning, but I suppose we could top it off. He's thinking about gasoline.
Yeah. Another way they could have taken this is like
a flatulence joke.
Yeah,
I was waiting for
joke.
a flatulence joke, but they kept it classy.
Yeah.
They're not going to do fart jokes on Perfect Strangers, I guess. But funny line nonetheless.
Yeah, funny line nonetheless. Dr. Shukin's like, no, not that gas. And then he brings over this tank, this like nitrous oxide tank, says this is nitrous oxide, it won't hurt him. And he turns the valve to turn it on, and then he puts this like red nose mask just over Larry's nose.
With two hoses coming out the side.
It's not a full mouth cover. It's just
like
the nose.
It's like a CPAP machine now, which is just the nose one.
It looks like a cross between a CPAP machine and like a clown nose because it's red.
Because it's red, and he's got a big red nose now.
And he puts it over, straps it over Larry's face, and he says he'll just feel very relaxed and maybe a little giggly. Larry says, I feel better, so much better. And he tells Larry to relax, and he'll be back after he checks his x-rays. Apparently in the break between acts, they took x-rays.
Oh, they did take the x-rays.
Of Larry's mouth, yeah.
So nitrous oxide is an actual gas that's used, and it's known to give you the giggles.
Yeah, here's the thing about nitrous oxide. We see it in television shows, and we'll talk about that as well. Like, we see it in movies, television shows. I have never had or even been offered
I never had the gas at the dentist. I never even seen the gas at the dentist.
I even looked it up, like, because I thought, is it one of these TV show things like quicksand that we never hear about in real life?
Real.
Slow quicksand.
And nitrous
real. And not
at
just,
the dentist is real.
So, like, it seems that dentists do use it, but for some reason, I've never come across this.
I mean, I guess it's those rare cases where you're either allergic to Novocaine or it doesn't work.
Or just, like, deathly afraid of needles or something.
And some people,
like
Novocaine doesn't work, right?
Oh,
we'll get to
myself included. We'll get to that.
Anyways.
But even so, I've never been offered the gas.
It would have been nice to have been given the option. Gas or the needle? I'd be like, let's try the gas this time. Let's talk about the dentist. Dr. Shukin is played by character actor Macon McCalman.
That's a great name.
Macon McCalman. He is another veteran of film and television. He's been in a number of things. You may, if you are a fan of 80s sitcoms, may have remembered
70s and 80s.
70s and 80s. Going back before the show, Three's Company. On Three's Company, one of my favorite shows, a show that I was way too young to be watching and didn't understand.
We were definitely way too young.
At the time, and later on going, oh my God, I was watching this as a child.
We watched a lot of Three's Company and reruns.
The amazing physical comedy when you're a kid, like everything he did. Anyways.
But there was like a lot of sexual innuendo.
Oh my God. That's
in
where
that show.
I learned how to jump to conclusions. Well, this was my first comedy lesson.
Yes.
It's funny when you jump to conclusions and you think they're talking about something else. That's the whole show.
That was the classic gimmick of that show that they really perfected.
Every time. Because it was Jack with two girls. Anyways, one of his roommates, Janet Wood, he played her father.
Okay.
And I kind of remember her father. Wasn't in a lot of episodes. But Three's Company, classic.
Okay, back to the dentist's office. Dr. Shukin leaves and closes the door behind him. So now we're just in the room with Balky and Larry in the dentist chair. As soon as Shukin leaves, Larry pulls the mask off of his nose and he's like, we're out of here. And Balky's like, nope. And he pushes him back down into the chair and he puts the mask back on his nose. And he said, cousin, you told me that sometimes we have to do things that we're afraid of because it's for our own good. Balky's like, are you sure? All right. He says, Balky, I am an adult.
Well,
and he's saying it with this red nose
what's funny
thing
is
on.
that it's more like this. Balky, I am an adult.
Yeah.
I can make my own decisions, and I've decided to leave here, and there's nothing you can do to make me stay. Like, it makes his voice all nasally because it's got this thing. It's so funny. And at this point, Larry's, like, adamant to leave. He yanks the nitrous hose off so hard that it pulls the hose off the tank of nitrous. And
off
now
to the side of the room.
It's on the far left side, and now a full blast of nitrous oxide is just being thrown into the room.
The room is
filling with nitrous oxide. This will be fine.
And Balky's like, now you've done it. I hope you're satisfied. Larry said, we can fix it. And he gets out of the chair and they both walk over to the side of the room to the gas tank. And
they lean over.
There's like, you can see the stream of gas coming out of the broken part. And there's a valve on it. And Larry turns the valve and the valve comes off in his hand. And he just looks at it, and then he tosses it into the sink.
But they're standing full blast right at the valve.
In front of
both of them. Balky's behind Larry with his chin on his shoulder, just inhaling large amounts of nitrous oxide.
And so Larry keeps fiddling with the top of the broken, like what's under that valve that he broke off, and he's trying to fix it. And then you can see behind him,
slowly,
Balky is starting to get a little loopy.
He's getting a little
like
silly
relaxed.
and sleepy.
And then this is all like beautiful physical comedy without much dialogue in this part. Then Larry turns from facing the gas tank, looks at Balky, And they just look at each other, and then they both burst into laughter because they are both gassed up.
Fools.
And they're like shushing each other. And then Balky's like, cousin, I can fix it. And then they keep laughing and they switch places.
I believe the medical term for this is high as a kite.
Yes.
That's what you would say back in the day. These two are giggling, leaning at each other. And then they switch places and Balky's looking at it and he goes, I need something sharp to Larry.
And Larry
not a good thing to say.
Goes to the tray at the chair and he picks up that needle.
Yes,
the needle with the Novocaine. And he holds it like a dentist does with his fingers through the toothing and he goes, something sharp. How about this? And he turns around and the needle goes straight into Balky's arm.
Stabs him in the arm with the needle and I suppose plunges the plunger also at the same time.
Yeah.
And this is hilarious, the timing here. Because Balky just slowly, all loosey-goosey, gets up.
And the needle is still in his arm. He's holding
Balky's holding, like, it's wiggling around in his arm. He must not be feeling anything. This has got to be painful.
And Balky turns around, looks at
him all kind of goofy. And he goes, what does he say? He goes, I've been shot. And they both start laughing.
Yeah.
As Larry, like, again, painfully, he pulls out the needle,
he's
not
like
straight
wiggling
out.
It, yeah.
He's wiggling it and pulls it out. He looks at it and he goes, I think you're down a quart. And they both start laughing again. And Balky goes, I think you're down a quart. This is funny. Did you get this?
I didn't initially because I am not into cars, but that's
it's automobile humor.
Humor.
He just checked his oil with the dipstick.
Yeah.
You pull out the dipstick like Larry pulled out the needle.
And they're so cracking up. They're like doubled over. They're like grasping each other. Imagine like two really drunk people really just laughing hysterically, being very sloppy in this room. And then
funny.
Larry tosses the needle into the sink too. And then Larry goes, wait a minute. I got an idea.
Oh, boy.
And then he says this, and you'll have to explain this after he says, we don't need no stinking dentist. And he says, you fill my tooth.
They got, oh, man.
This is going to be trouble.
Inebriated ideas are always the funniest. So, yeah, we don't need no stinking dentist. This is a play on the line, we don't need no stinking badges. Badges? It's a classic line. It comes up a lot. Badges. We don't need no stinking badges. It's a reference to a line spoken from a group of Mexican bandits in the movie Treasure of the Sierra Madre from 1948, this Western film by John Huston. And I believe the quote has lived on, even though, like many quotes, like Luke, I am your father, or there's another one, I don't know if they actually said that in the movie.
Exactly like
but
that.
But it ended up being badges. We don't need no stinking badges. Also, in Three Amigos, I believe they famously, that comes up because that's like a comedy Western, which is where I remember it from, Three Amigos.
That must have been the more recent reference at this point.
Yes, that would have came out in the 80s, yes.
Because 1948 is a long ways to remember this.
No, but that Western, somehow, a lot of that line lived on. In infamy.
We don't need no stinking badges. I didn't recognize the line, but I knew it was a reference to something.
I remember hearing that.
So anyway, he says, you fill my tooth. They're all cracking up. They think it's a brilliant idea. But he's like, okay. And they sort of meander, stumble laughing over back to the chair.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Larry is singing a song
as he gets into the chair.
But he's got different words. He goes, he'll be drilling through my molars when he drills.
Which is the song, he'll be coming around the mountain when he comes.
Song alert by Larry this time.
Yeah.
He'll be drilling through my molars when he drills. It's hilarious.
So Larry sits in and Balky takes his hands and opens Larry's jaw.
He just sticks his hand in his mouth.
Sticks his fingers in his mouth and he goes, you know what? And with his hand still in Larry's mouth, Larry goes, what?
This is how people get COVID.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing over here.
Yeah. And Balky says, there's not sufficient light in this room for me to fill your tooth.
Doesn't he say sufficient?
He says sufficient.
These two are laughing so much. I'm wondering how much of this is actual them cracking up versus because you're going to exaggerate the nitrous oxide, right?
Right.
And while every episode we've seen them try to hold back the laughter, I wonder if this one they had fun because they're like, you know what? just try to crack each other up?
It's a good question. I hope that was the case because, as we've said, they filmed these physical comedy bits in front of live studio audiences, and they have said in interviews that they tried. They were both, theater actors from plays before. They tried always to do these complicated scenes in one take so that the audience laughter would be the most genuine.
Their bursts of laughter are contagious.
Yes.
Like a lot of it
Everyone
feels
was laughing.
sincere. Like you feel it, like they're really going through this.
So he says, there's not enough light. He says, you're going to have to help me move the chair. And he says, I'll help you out of the chair. And Balky grabs Larry by the top of his hair and lifts him, yanks him out of the chair.
It's a great little touch.
And then they each move to either side of the chair. And these dentist chairs are very heavy and bolted to the ground.
Probably bolted to the ground.
So they each lean down on either side of the chair, trying to grab it. And they go, ready, 1, 2, 3. And then they both go, ooh, and you can see their face straining for 10 seconds or something. And the chair doesn't move, of course.
Of course, the chair is not moving.
And then they finally stop. And Larry says, better. And Balky says, much. And he goes, okay. And so he gets back into the chair. They think they've moved it.
And so now Larry's in the chair and Balky's behind him, right? To the side. And the tray with the drill is in front of Larry.
Yeah.
And Balky's like, oh gosh, okay, I gotta get that drill. And he tries to lift his left arm.
Yeah.
And nothing. It's just limp.
It's limp and numb because he got a full shot of Novocaine in there.
It's like he has a puppet arm and he picks it up with his other hand and drops it on the sink and goes, Cousin, I can't feel my arm.
And Larry touches Balky's arm. He goes, you sure? I can feel it. And they both start cracking up again.
And he goes, well, then it must be okay. And then he goes, I got to go around the other side. And as he crosses behind him, of course, his arm is limp.
Trailing.
And catches Larry in the neck and turns him as Balky tries to go around the other side and then uses his foot to try to dislodge his arm. It's so funny.
Great,
There's
brilliant
so much physical comedy in little bits here. So now Balky is on the left side of Larry.
Yes. And so he goes, he takes the drill and it's buzzing. And he's like, now let's have a look. Open wide. And Larry opens wide and Balky leans in toward Larry's mouth with the drill. And you're like, oh my God. At this point, I was cringing and watching through my fingers. I'm like, no. And we are saved by Dr. Shukin, who comes in.
Perfect timing.
Excellent timing with Dr. Shukin.
Look, if you're a dentist and you walk into this, I think you're like, I'm going to get sued. What is happening? What are you guys doing?
Yeah. And he's like, what's going on here? And Balky says, well, if you must know, I'm about to perform an oral Hershiser. And they both start laughing hysterically. And Balky's in Larry's lap at this point. He
collapses in his lap. Oh, my God.
Okay, what's an oral Hershiser? Okay. He meant to say an oral surgery or oral procedure.
Oral
procedure.
But oral is O-R-E-L. Yeah. Now,
Hershiser.
Okay, Oral Hershiser was a name I knew at once, and I kind of forgot. And we both came to the first thought.
Football player.
No, was that a football player?
I guessed football player.
I thought so, but then when I found out who it was, I was like, there's a reason.
It sounds like a football player.
Remember this. Oral Hershiser, well-known baseball player who was a pitcher, rose to fame with the Los Angeles Dodgers. In fact, the summer earlier, 1988, he had won the World Series.
Okay, so he was in the news.
So, yes, he had an amazing arm. Everybody knew Oral Hershiser.
Yeah, that's why I remembered, the name. I feel like it was a name that sounded familiar, that I knew back in the 90s.
It was everybody knew Oral Hershiser. He went on to be a baseball analyst for ESPN and the Dodgers. Now, here's the interesting tidbits that I remember. And this is weird, because I'm not a sports guy at all, right? I never followed sports, but for some reason, around this time, I remember I got into collecting baseball cards.
What?
Yeah, I had baseball cards. And for some reason, I was watching the World Series games at this age because that's the only way I remember Oral Hershiser being a thing, 1988 World Series. And then I have this vivid memory from the 1989 World Series, okay?
89?
Yes.
Okay.
The year, this episode aired October 13th.
Yeah.
Check this out. I remember this. 4 days later, October 17th, 1989, was
the day after my 10th
The day after your 10th birthday, there was game 3 of the World Series. And for some reason, I was watching. And I was watching in our parents' bedroom. I remember laying on the bed, watching on their TV.
Yeah.
And before the game started, about 5:04 p.m., I see these cameras start to shake. I see the signal flicker out, and it goes black. I vividly remember this.
You remember this?
I remember this.
Wow.
And a few minutes later, it came back. There was an earthquake that happened live on the air in Oakland. And it was the big one where it dropped that bridge on top of the other bridge. It was one of the, between Oakland and San Francisco, did a lot of damage to the Candlestick Park where the game was being played. And I remember going, what just happened? And it came back and they were like, we just had a huge earthquake. And then that story was on the news for weeks. And I remember seeing the bridge collapse. So that would have happened.
They in fact paused the World Series for 10 days because it was such a big event.
So first I was like, why do I remember this? Why was I watching the World Series? But then I think it's because I was collecting I got into collecting the Batman movie cards. And then I think I was just collecting like Garbage Pail Kid cards, and I thought I could collect baseball cards. I think probably
those cards were at the same shops, the comic book shops where you were getting the other ones, so maybe you just dabbled.
Briefly, I was like into baseball cards. I have vague memories of that, but then I was like,
sports,
it's very strange. I'd probably still have them.
You watched baseball for a minute.
Yeah, like I gave all sports a try, and I was like, nope. Anyways, that's little
wild.
World Series sidetrack. Oral Hershiser made me remember the earthquake, which I saw live.
Okay, so the next scene starts back at the apartment. So we don't see, apparently.
They both got work done, I guess.
Yeah, Dr. Shukin saves them from a tragedy, and he does both of their dental work. They return home, and here we see them coming home. Larry enters the apartment first, and he says, it's been a rich, full day, hasn't it?
Well, and you get a little Larry, well. It's been a rich, full day, hasn't it? And then you see Balky step into the apartment, and Balky is now wearing latex gloves, holding like 5 balloons, and he's got a little toy car in his arm. And Balky's like, you got that right.
He says, we got our teeth filled. I got this very handsome pair of gloves.
They're the latex gloves.
And we learned how to clean up a dentist's office.
Oh, Dr. Shukin made him clean up the mess they made. Breaking tanks and whatnot.
And Larry even says, I would have thought the Dr. Shukin would have been more upset about the mess we made. And Balky says, I think it's because he likes us. I hear him tell his assistant that he was going to put a little something extra on our bill.
See, at first I was like, wow, he wasn't mad, but no, he's just going to charge him like $1,000 for damage. That's how he gets his revenge. And Larry's like, that's fair.
And so here's the closing button of the show. They make their way over to the kitchen, sit on opposite sides of the counter. Balky retrieves a carton of milk and 2 glasses because in 1989, this is what
do 2 young bachelors do when they come home from the dentist?
Bachelors do.
To celebrate? No,
they drink 2 glasses of milk, and he pours 2 glasses for them. Just milk, good wholesome milk.
Vitamin D, hot with all the fat like it should be.
Which fortunately for this show is a very visible substance, a visible white liquid. So he pours 2 glasses of milk because this is what they did. And Balky thanks Larry for making him go to the dentist, even though he didn't want to. And Larry says, of course, like I said, sometimes you have to do things you're afraid of. And when you do, it's nice to have a friend there with you. That's very nice.
Aww.
Then we hear the lesson time music.
Even though they don't really have a lesson.
Not really
it's
a lesson.
Just the wrap up music.
Balky, it's like a nice moment between them. Balky says, I'm glad you were there with me. And Larry says, I'm glad you were there with me. Aww. If you weren't, I never would have gotten over my fear of needles. And he says, boy, that Novocaine is powerful stuff. And Balky's like, tell me about it. I didn't feel a thing.
And then, this is a weird exchange. I feel like some joke got cut and edited because there's audience laughter. And but maybe the joke is he did, I don't know. It was a weird exchange.
And he says, so going to the dentist wasn't all that bad, but I can think of a lot of better ways to spend an afternoon. And Larry picks up his glass of milk and he says, I'll drink to that. And they cheers their glasses together. And they both drink at the same time. And of course, they've just been to the dentist. So all this white milk comes dribbling down their shirts. They don't realize it at all. They're just like, looking off into space, and they both dribble down their shirts at the same time. The audience cracks up.
So funny.
And then Larry looks at Balky and says, "Careful, Balky, you're dribbling all over yourself." And then Larry takes another drink and, of course, dribbles all down himself, and then roll credits.
Listener, before we get into our thoughts on the episode, maybe you're you're shopping around for a graphic tee. Maybe you need a new coffee mug. Maybe you just need a new cell phone case because you're tired of the one you have. We have all of those things at our TeePublic shop, danceofjoypod.com/shop, and more fun items with our logo. It's a great way to support the show and get cool niche things to display around your house and to your friends. You will be the envy of all your friends. They're going to want to know what that is, where you got it. And then you can let them know about Dance of Joy, right? Everybody, It's a great plan. I have a plan.
Oh, boy.
Anyways, this episode, listen, the good old-fashioned Novocaine dribbling liquid joke at the end, great physical comedy, and a subject matter that has been done many times on television, and how relatable is going to the dentist.
Of course,
right?
That's why it works on every show that does it.
Absolutely.
Very relatable. Everyone has to go to the dentist.
Everyone has to go to the dentist.
Hates it.
So, and every sitcom will do it. There is a classic Laverne and Shirley episode with Laverne chips the tooth, and Shirley's got to convince her to go to the dentist. There's also laughing gas involved in that episode.
Yeah.
The laughing gas, again, reminded me of Little Shop of Horrors and how that, again, the great scene where the dentist goes, "I'm going to use the gas for this." And his patient's like, "Oh, no, I don't need any gas." And he goes, "It's not for you. It's for me." And he puts the gas on and giggling. Oh, what a great, sorry.
And even Happy Days, a show that shares many of the staff with this show, had an episode where Fonzie, the coolest of the
cool guy who's not afraid of anything,
is afraid to go to the dentist.
The guy who'll jump sharks on his motorcycle or his skis or whatever. Everybody's afraid of the dentist.
Yes.
Other notable dentist episodes in sitcoms. What do you think of, sister? I think of Seinfeld. Dr. Tim Whatley, who was their dentist, who became Jewish just for the jokes. Remember that?
Right.
That was hilarious. Bryan Cranston playing him. Breaking Bad, Malcolm in the Middle, Bryan Cranston before those on Seinfeld.
Lots of the Brady Bunch did it. Married with Children did it. Even the Flintstones had a dentist in the Stone Age.
One of my favorites is Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's Island had a dentist.
How? I don't know where this guy came from.
Well, it was the professor.
It was the professor who has to be an oral surgeon.
Who's just like so smart because he's
Gilligan,
a professor that he can
Somebody has a toothache.
Be the island's dentist.
But I do remember what happened is somehow Gilligan's teeth were getting radio signals. They turned his mouth into a radio, and they still couldn't get off the island.
They still didn't get off the island.
What is happening? You had a radio in Gilligan's mouth, and you couldn't get off the island. Anyway, a solid setup, a solid premise for a fun sitcom.
And this one follows suit. This was a fun episode. Not really any lesson. I feel like they had the idea for the laughing gas and built the episode around it, maybe. This episode was just there for that big scene of physical comedy, which was lovely and hilarious as always. Again, it's also relatable. My first question, however, was right from the beginning of the episode, the opening scene, wouldn't you think there would be some Meposian dental tradition or dental cure or some remedy that he could do for his achy tooth? But conveniently, there was none that was discussed in this episode.
Maybe he'd need like weird ingredients that sometimes he can find.
But he finds the weird ingredients all the time. Yeah. But of course, if there had been, that would have been a different show altogether, which is a show I would like to see. Maybe that would have been a fun show too. Or maybe they thought about it and didn't have time.
You got any dental horror stories?
Yeah. So the other thing I thought about this episode is like, we talked about how Larry is treating Balky like a child and Balky turns into this child. I think everybody turns into a child when it comes to the dentist.
No matter what age, you should get a lollipop and some ice cream afterwards.
Yes. I'm scared of the needle. I'm scared of the drill. The drill is scary. It's going like... And like I said, tooth and nerve pain in your mouth is like a completely different kind of pain that's in its own league from, and I'm not diminishing other pains. I've had lots of other pains, and pain is pain is pain. It all sucks and it's all hard. But dental pain, man.
I mean, I'm wincing right now thinking about. I'm sure the listener is too. Just think of every day you go to the dentist. The Novocaine shot is the worst. Okay, give me a horror story.
Let's take a brief moment to share a couple stories. Mine happened just last year. Okay, up until last year, and I'm a grown woman now. I was like, okay, I never liked the dentist, but I was like, you gotta go, you gotta go. Last summer, I had to have some cavities replaced or some fillings replaced and a crown put on. And the crown and the one cavity was on a part of my mouth that apparently this one quadrant of my mouth doesn't take to the Novocaine.
What?
And we had learned this and remembered it at a previous visit. And I had gone back to like finish up the process, which was putting in the new filling and the new crown. And the dentist who had worked, it was a series of 3 appointments, but the dentist who had worked on me the first 2 appointments was like really busy this day. So she asked her coworker to fill in and gave her the notes, but like the notes apparently were very brief and minimal.
Didn't emphasize that Novocaine doesn't work on this person.
This poor woman who's meeting me for the first time, she puts it in. She's like, can you feel this? I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to need this. We learned that it doesn't take. And she's like, okay, we'll just give you more.
Yeah, shove more in there.
So I swear to God, she gives me like 5 or 6 shots and kept saying like, can you feel that? Mm-hmm. Can you feel this? We would wait a while. I'm like, yes, I can feel that. What? Yes, I can feel that. So it was like 5 or 6. And finally I'm numb. Okay.
That's crazy.
And then.
Oh no.
This has never happened before. And it took both of us by surprise. The Novocaine wore out too early.
What, during the procedure?
She was in my freaking tooth.
No.
I mean, it took both of us by surprise. I had visions of a medieval dental torture chamber in a dungeon somewhere. I started, so my mouth was full of stuff, okay? Like the thing that holds your mouth open, the rubber guard, whatever. I started screaming. I was crying, tears down my face. I was cursing, but you couldn't hear the hard endings because I had stuff in my mouth.
Like Balky and Larry.
My legs and arms were flailing. Literally, the assistants were like holding me down. And I was like, and she was just as traumatized, the dentist, as I was. And she goes, how did you just burn through that?
This woman
we gave you like 6
of
shots and your body just burned through it. And I was like, it's never happened before. I literally was like shaking
high metabolism.
And like tears down my face.
That is insane.
And she goes, do you want me to stop? And I was like, yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please stop. She's like, should we do more Novocaine? And I was like, yes. And she was like, do you want to
What about gas? Why didn't they give you gas?
They didn't offer me gas. And she said,
someone knock me out, please.
I remember she said, do you want to finish another day? And I was like, no. As in shock and trauma that I was like, no, we are finishing this today and I'm never coming back here again.
My Lord.
And so she gave me more. Okay. Man. And it was still just like, I still felt a lot of things. It was the worst pain. I'm just like, and literally like we finished and she leaves me in the room. And I'm shaking. Everything was done. My mouth is really numb, but also in pain. And I just sat there and shook and like I had crusty tears all over my face. And so she left me for a while. I like composed myself and I went. I don't know if like people heard me from the waiting area or what, but
people
it was
canceling their appointments. You know what? Actually, can I postpone this?
We actually, or maybe they have soundproof rooms for that reason. Who knows? I go out to the front desk to like pay and stuff, and the whole time I was torn between like, what just happened? This is not what I signed up for, and thinking, oh, this poor woman.
Yeah.
And because she had said to me, she was like, none of this was in the notes.
Oh, no.
And this appointment was scheduled for 1 hour. It was supposed to be like wrap up the procedures I needed.
Did it take?
I was there for 3 to 4 hours. Okay.
Oh my God.
And so in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So I go out, I'm still shaking. I wobble myself out and the dentist comes by with like the papers and in my head, I'm like, I I kind of simultaneously want to ask for a discount and also leave this woman a tip. Like,
oh my God. Yeah.
Like, I don't know which one to ask for, but I was like, and she comes by and I was like, look, we just met today, but we've been through a lot together. And I was like,
I'm so traumatic experience.
And she laughed. She was like, yeah, we sure did. And I was like, I'm so sorry about all of that, but I also hope I never see you again. And she laughed at that too. And I remember this was like, I had to go on the metro for like an hour it was a specialty dentist. So I left and I like just shakily walked into the metro and just sat down, and I was just in a daze. I couldn't I was like in so much shock and like what, and I was meant to be back online at work, and I was like, I don't know. And then the metro ride, like the whole commute was like an hour, right? So, and I had to walk like 15, 20 minutes on the other end to get to my apartment. By the time I'm walking to my apartment, the Novocaine had worn out again. So my mouth is like throbbing. I had prescription pain pills, but they were at my apartment.
Oh, man.
So my mouth is throbbing. I'm walking home again in tears. I decide to treat myself to Starbucks.
Oh, yeah.
And again, absentmindedly, just first sip dribbled all over myself.
The Novocaine is still working, but it's not working.
So it's very relatable, but
you went through what they went through.
I tell you what, like I had never had a bad experience, even as a child. I didn't like it, but now I'm so scared of the dentist. I will never go back.
So you haven't been back since then?
It was last summer. I had to fix up some stuff in my mouth.
Do you know for a fact that it's one side that the Novocaine will work on the other side?
Because it worked in the
makes no sense.
Last summer, you know those old silver fillings when we were kids, the silver amalgams that have mercury in them? I had to remove all the mercury from my mouth, get them replaced.
Yeah,
so they were like,
that was a good idea. Put mercury in your body. Who thinks this is a good idea?
Apparently that mercury, PSA, the mercury, the dentist will, if you're old enough to have those fillings, the dentist will tell you, no. The regular dentist will say, no, if we don't touch them, it's fine.
Oh, like asbestos. Just leave it alone.
Apparently those fillings had been leaking mercury into my organs for 30 years.
Well, everybody's like, we shouldn't have been putting mercury in our teeth.
We didn't know. So anyway,
wow,
that's my story.
Oh my God, I gotta unclench. Hold on.
Oh my God, sorry. I just re-traumatized myself.
The listener is all stressed out now.
And I remember sending a message to like my coworkers and boss, being like, I just had a traumatic event at the dentist. I'm not logging on for work.
Here's my experience real quick, and it's not going to make you feel any better because clearly our genetics are not completely similar. I had extensive work done where it was like 8 hours in a chair. I'm not going to get into it. They gave me Novocaine. That was amazing. Like the most recent experience, they were doing things in my mouth that looked like a horror show, and I fell asleep. I didn't feel any of it. I fell asleep while they were ripping teeth out of my head, right? Drilling and doing crazy things. I was like, this Novocaine is amazing. I didn't feel any of the torturous things either. And I'm hearing these devices and these scrapings and drillings, and I'm like, I fell asleep.
I'm jealous.
We clearly, there's some DNA that I don't know what happened.
I forgot one very important
detail?
part. Oh man, we might have to edit this back in because this is a funny part. After the 5 or 6 shots of Novocaine, right? Because this was like, we had already been there an hour and a half, like trying to deal with. After the 5 or 6 shots, I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. Can I run to the bathroom real quick? And this was like normal. I had done it before. They're like, yeah, sure. So we take all the stuff out of my mouth. My mouth's numb. We're waiting for we were waiting for it anyway. And I went to the bathroom and I took a big dump. That's what ended up happening. Okay. Like,
get out of the city.
Is Novocaine a diuretic?
I didn't plan on it, but I had to poop and it was a big poop.
Yeah.
And so this is the detail that I forgot to mention. Then I come back in, she starts working, the Novocaine wears out. And she's like, how did your body burn through that? And in my head was like, did I poop out the Novocaine?
You might have.
So, PSA to everyone, don't poop out the Novocaine at the dentist.
Go before. Poop it out before.
It has never happened to me before. Like the fact that it doesn't take had happened to me, but the wearing off quickly has never happened.
I can't believe you burned through all that Novocaine.
I pooped it out, or something amazing was happening with my metabolism at the time.
Maybe we're not related. I don't know, because I love that Novocaine. I was like, this is the best thing ever.
But imagine getting 6 shots in your mouth.
That makes no sense. And then
ridiculous.
it just wears off.
And then more after it wore off.
While they're doing
My
things.
mouth was sore for days.
Jeez. All right, well. Oof.
All right.
Let's get to some listener comments for this episode. Both listeners, Gabitha Edwards and Cecile Griffith. Cecily. Oh, I keep saying Cecile. Cecily Griffith, Gabitha Edwards both say this is one of their favorite episodes, Truth or Consequences.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those classics that it didn't live on in my memory, but I think it could have. Yeah.
I didn't remember that whole nitrous oxide bit. It is so funny.
Yeah.
Nicole Stoner, who has my favorite name of all time.
Cousin Nicole.
She says, based on the amount of Raisin Poofs, Sears Tower sundaes, and batches of Bibi Babkas Balky has bitten into with brute force. Great alliteration.
Nice alliteration.
I find it hard to believe that he's never been to the dentist, basically.
Yeah.
Then again, Meepos seems to have magical cure-all elixirs, so who knows how effective one might be on tooth enamel.
Where is the Meeposian?
See, I forgot about all the sweets because I figured Meepos has no like sugary treats, so they're fine. But no, they got Bibi Babkas.
Yeah.
But then he started eating sundaes.
Because he started American sugar
yes.
hits differently, of course.
Yes, and this is before high fructose corn syrup. No, maybe this is right. This is high fructose corn syrup.
Well, that's the thing. He would have started ingesting high fructose corn syrup after coming to America.
Great alliteration by Nicole Stoner, too.
Well
and then,
done.
of course, John Atema, cousin John, has a couple of fun observations and a nice wrap-up. He says, first, I'm a big fan of Larry lying for Balky's actual benefit.
Yes, well done, Larry.
So we've seen Larry lie 2 episodes in a row for his own benefit.
Yeah.
Now he's lying for Balky's benefit. I like that. He says, camera stealing part of your soul is still very much a thing in some cultures.
Wow.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
You're just these tribal people to see somebody flash a thing. And then he says that much nitrous oxide in the room would probably have suffocated the boys. Thankfully, it's just TV.
They must have had some ventilation in the room as well, though.
No, but he's probably right.
Yeah.
Like, it would have killed them. Eventually, it suffocates. It's not a flammable gas like helium, which I learned when I worked at the balloon company, balloon delivery service. Helium and nitrous oxide, not flammable, but it will kill all your brain cells and eventually asphyxiate you.
Yikes.
And then his wrap-up says, I enjoyed this episode for what it was. No lessons and the thinnest premise for a story.
Yep.
I mean, when Balky's toothache is established, I think the credits are still showing he's right. Like,
right to it.
Quick setup. B+ for sitcom simplicity at its finest. Absolutely.
Simplicity, but lots of laughs.
Simple and right to the point.
We love it.
Yes, and it was fun. I had a great time laughing.
We did not have a Don't Be Ridiculous this episode. Of course I have Don't Be Ridiculous. Thank you. And we also had no Dimitri.
Yeah, I don't know what
could have been a
fun.
He could have had like
a gas mask on his face,
bandage around his face,
or the old like cartoon bandage when you have a toothache.
Yeah.
Well.
Oh well.
He was in the episode last week.
That's true.
He was
on break.
He was in his trailer. He's like, I'm working this week.
Okay, so let's talk about Perfect Strangers today, which is, of course, the segment of our show where we talk about, could this episode be made today? Could this story be told today? And I think absolutely.
We just discussed how it's relatable.
If we in good faith believe the internet in that dentists do actually use nitrous oxide, which neither of us have seen despite our own dental trauma stories.
Listener, let us know if you've ever had nitrous at the dentist.
Has anyone had nitrous oxide at the dentist? But yeah, absolutely. Everything about this episode would hold up today.
But dental technology is crazy now. It made me think of they took a 3D scan of my head.
That's right. Me too.
You stand in this thing and this machine goes around your head.
All the way around your head.
And then you have a 3D picture of your teeth. It's amazing. I was that's really cool. But
that's right.
They still have barbaric instruments. There's still a drill. They still got to stick a needle to get the Novocaine in. Once it's in, most of us are fine. There's 1% of us that are not, unfortunately.
One quadrant of my mouth that is not fine.
I wonder how rare that is.
It was wild.
But you could do jokes about the Novocaine. You could do...
Oh, all of this. That whole physical comedy scene,
if you want to update it now, I believe some dentists have 3D printers where they'll print out a tooth or a cap there.
My cap was 3D printed.
Isn't that
my
hilarious?
crown was 3D printed, and then they had to shave it down a little, which is cool. Yeah, very cool.
Right, so you could do a thing where they get all high and they start printing out silly things from the 3D printer.
No, but it's not on the spot. They send out for it and order it. But I think actually just the way this was, with the exception of I would love to see a story. This isn't about modernizing the story at all. But again, I would like to see a story about with some attempt at a Myposian remedy.
Oh, that would
cure.
be interesting. But it absolutely still holds up, everything. And you could do the same physical comedy.
Yep.
So it's one of those classic timeless, and I'm sure we'll see more dentist episodes in sitcoms in the future.
Yeah, it's funny how dentistry is still, there are some modernizations, but like the emotions around going to the dentist are still the same.
You know what? Here's something funny that I was thinking about. I had a dentist and I had a periodontist.
Mhm.
Now, if you don't know what a periodontist is,
It's like for braces?
no, that's orthodontist.
Oh, right.
This is a weird, specific thing. A periodontist is someone who goes into the field and goes, you know what? I don't really care about the teeth. I just want to focus on the gums. That's what I'm into.
Oh, it's
they
just
are just
gums?
and I'll go to the periodontist, and every time I'm there, I want to ask the lady, why the gums? Like, could you not hack it at dental school? Do you gotta go lower, or is one higher than the other? Do you look down at dentists because you're like, oh, you guys just take care of teeth?
Yeah.
I got gums and flesh and tissue.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what would make you go, I don't care about the teeth, I just want to get into the gums?
Yeah.
Anyways, that's how bad my teeth were.
That's wild. I would also love to hear Larry explain to Balki about dental insurance and health insurance and why in America teeth and eyes are a separate thing from the rest of your body and health. Like, why are teeth and eyes? Of course, it's all capitalist business related to how providers work and whatever.
We'll give you 100% healthcare coverage, except for the two things you use every day. Your eyes and your teeth.
I would love to hear Balki's understanding of that.
I wonder what kind of plan the Chronicle had.
Yeah.
Whether it was covered or not. Because it doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be separate. What are we doing here?
Yeah, because dentistry, despite my trauma, I did not get a discount. And all of that work I had done was very, very expensive.
Well, listen, you take care of your teeth so you don't got to go back in again.
All the mercury's out of my mouth now. So
if you ever need Novocaine again, you're going to be like, just hit me over the head and knock me out, please. All right, that's it for this week. Join us next week, listener, when the cousins learn about washing cash as they uncover a money laundering scheme, and there's a bomb apparently. Yeah, gets to be a crazy journalistic crime thriller. Suddenly next week on Perfect Strangers. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this episode and you enjoy the podcast, consider supporting the podcast. You can buy us a virtual coffee with throw some spare dick duds our way. Visit our site, danceofjoypod.com/support. They're a little biased, a virtual coffee. Now, this coffee can be iced or hot. We don't discriminate. We love both. But all support is appreciated. All of it goes back into ensuring the show stays online and actually has a place to live, and there's a website for it and all that fun stuff.
In the meantime, if you want to know more about Dance of Joy, the podcast, you can visit our website, danceofjoypod.com. There we have all the links for where you can listen to our show, subscribe, leave us a rating, a review, etc. You can press a button right there on the main page and leave us a voice message. We want to hear your dental trauma stories. Have you ever pooped out all the Novocaine? Or is this just a Sophia thing? I am dying to know.
I don't think that's normal.
If you, like me and some others, hate the sound of your own voice, you can also send us an email, danceofjoypod@gmail.com. Also on our website, find all of our links to our social media accounts. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'd love to see you and connect with you on all of those places. But Imran, what is the most important thing our listeners should do?
Always brush your teeth, floss, and poop before you go to the dentist.
Very good.
That way, the dentist thinks you're actually taking care of your teeth, and the Novocaine stays in. But the other important thing is to share this episode, share the podcast with your friends, with anyone. Share it with someone who likes going to the dentist, but you won't be able to find that person.
Share it with your dentist.
Share it with your dentist, your periodontist, your orthodontist,
dental hygienist,
the dental hygienist, the anesthesiologist, the Novocaine person, the receptionist when you get to the appointment.
Yes.
Share it with all those people.
Share the show. Word of mouth goes a long way. We would appreciate it. And now we are so happy that we're not at the dentist.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy.
Hey, 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 hey.